A failure is not always a mistake. It may simply be the best one can do under the circumstances. The real mistake is to stop trying. The real problem is not whether machines think but whether men do. Education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten. That's all teaching is, arranging contingencies which bring changes in behavior. Behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. A person who has been punished is not thereby simply less inclined to behave in a given way. At best, he learns how to avoid punishment. The way positive reinforcement is carried out is more important than the amount. What is love except another name for the use of positive reinforcement? Or vice versa? A first principle not formally recognized by scientific methodologists: when you run into something interesting, drop everything else and study it. The consequences of an act affect the probability of its occurring again. The major difference between rats and people is that rats learn from experience. Do not intervene between a person and the consequences of their own behavior. If freedom is a requisite for human happiness, then all that's necessary is to provide the illusion of freedom. We are only just beginning to understand the power of love because we are just beginning to understand the weakness of force and aggression. An important fact about verbal behavior is that speaker and listener may reside within the same skin. Science is a willingness to accept facts even when they are opposed to wishes. The juvenile delinquent does not feel his disturbed personality. The intelligent man does not feel his intelligence, or the introvert his introversion. We shouldn't teach great books, we should teach a love of reading. If you're old, don't try to change yourself, change your environment. A self is a repertoire of behavior appropriate to a given set of contingencies. We admire people to the extent that we cannot explain what they do, and the word admire then means marvel at. Let men be happy, informed, skillful, well-behaved, and productive. We do not choose survival as a value, it chooses us. It is not a question of starting. The start has been made. It's a question of what's to be done from now on. Old age is rather like another country. You will enjoy it more if you have prepared yourself before you go. Does a poet create, originate, initiate the thing called a poem, or is his behavior merely the product of his genetic and environmental histories? A disappointment is not generally an oversight. It might just be the best one can do, the situation being what it is. The genuine error is to quit attempting. The real question is not whether machines think, but whether men do. The mystery which surrounds a thinking machine already surrounds a thinking man. The world's a poor standard. Any society which is free of hunger and violence looks bright against the background. It is a surprising fact that those who object most violently to the manipulation of behavior nevertheless make the most vigorous effort to manipulate minds. Except when physically restrained, a person is least free or dignified when he is under threat of punishment, and unfortunately most people often are. If the world is to save any part of its resources for the future, it must reduce not only consumption but the number of consumers. Men build society and society builds men. Society attacks early, when the individual is helpless. A person's genetic endowment, a product of the evolution of the species, is said to explain part of the workings of his mind and his personal history the rest. It is a mistake to suppose that the whole issue is how to free man. The issue is to improve the way in which he is controlled. Was putting a man on the moon actually easier than improving education in our public schools? Problem solving typically involves the construction of discriminative stimuli. A permissive government is a government that leaves control to other sources. A scientist may not be sure of the answer, but he's often sure he can find one. And that's a condition which is clearly not enjoyed by philosophy. Going out of style isn't a natural process, but a manipulated change which destroys the beauty of last year's dress in order to make it worthless. Indeed, one of the ultimate advantages of an education is simply coming to the end of it. The extent to which human aggression exemplifies innate tendencies is not clear. Overcrowding can be corrected only by inducing people not to crowd, and the environment will continue to deteriorate until polluting practices are abandoned. A piece of music is an experience to be taken by itself. When we say that a man controls himself, we must specify who is controlling whom.